All right, glad to have you back. In a move aimed at promoting public health and combating the escalating burden of non-communicable diseases, the Lagos State government is contemplating the implementation of pro-health levy on sugar-sweetened beverages. In a statement quoting the Commissioner of Health, Mr. Akin Abayomi, and made available to newsmen by the Media and Communications Officer, the Corporate Accountability and Public Participation Africa, Mr. Robert Egbe, Mr. Abayomi said that the sugar-sweetened beverages levy will contribute to driving the state's human capital agenda for a healthier life that will in turn impact its health and education sectors positively. Well, let's get talking. I introduced that earlier. She's a lawyer and associate director at PricewaterhouseCoopers Nigeria, Ugochi, Ndebbio. It's good to see you. Thank you for joining the program.
Thank you very much, Tolu. It's good to be back here.
Yeah, it's been a while. Thank you. It's good to see you. Well, yeah, we understand from this statement, really, made by the Commissioner of Health in Lagos, that the state is considering introducing the tax on sugar-sweetened beverages. But let me ask you really this way, that what really is your overall view on that before we look at maybe economic and health impacts?
Okay. Thanks a lot for the question, Tolu. And I think my overall view is, firstly, this cannot be the time to think of introducing or increasing any tax, both at the state and at the federal level. It is just not the time. So I think I'll drop it there before I then go on to analyze why I hold that view. So if I can look at the economic impact, I can look at it from a health angle, and I can also look at it from a legal perspective. I don't know if you want us to go that way.
Beautiful. That's what happens when you're talking to a lawyer and a tax person. All right, then let's start from the economic implication of this.
Okay. All right. Thanks a lot. So in fact, when I saw the news article, I was extremely shocked, to say the least. Because if you look at, I don't think, so you think of the everyday person on the streets, even children on the streets today, they will tell you that Nigeria is going through a difficult time. So this is something that has gotten down to everybody. Now, if I need to quote BBC says that Nigeria is facing the worst economic crisis in a generation. Inflation is at 30%. Exchange rates is dancing between 1.4 and 1.6. That is an all-record high. NPR is at 23% before we even think of the adding margins. Are we thinking of power? Power is at an all-time low. Infrastructural deficits, or is it insecurity? There are so many things going on in the country right now that adding a tax on it just doesn't work. After 2022, this was even when things were slightly better than now. NBS said that 63% of Nigerians are multidimensionally poor. I don't know what the numbers is going to look like right now. So if I look at that, I look at the economic indices. GDP of the food and beverage sector, whole of last year, it was continued to shrink and continues to contract. I think it was the last quarter of the year is usually when you have an uptick. What we had last year was just an uptick of 1%. So looking at people are trying to introduce taxes, they don't do much. You look at the fact that businesses are closing down daily. Small businesses are closing down daily. Even the conglomerates are affected. We had it when GSK closed down. P&G closed down their manufacturing. The small guys, if I look at the Mabisco, it's a biscuit company, Deli Foods, Jubilee Syringe, companies are shutting down daily. It's not the time. Times of economic depression is not when a government should be looking to increase taxes. It doesn't work. Now, if I look at the article and I see some of the rates that are being touted there on the basis of inflation, it's completely unrealistic. If you look at that, you can't take an economic index and then just use it as a basis to make a recommendation. You must look at everything holistically. You just looked at the inflation. They didn't look at what's the impact on the industry. The industry is on the verge of a collapse. They have been recording losses for years. I'm sure you would have seen the news last year. They kept singing in the news. It was almost like a broken record. The industry is making losses. They are on the verge of a collapse. They need government support. Government now wants to come and say, I want to introduce a new tax. You just simply kill the industry. And I'm not sure that that's what the government is looking to do. We haven't looked at the impact on the government, on the industry. We haven't looked at the impact on jobs and livelihood. Sorry, Tolu, you just need to indulge me. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, please. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
We haven't looked at the impact on employment, jobs and livelihood, the value chain that depend on this. We have small mom and pop, all these are mom and pop shops that sell these products. We haven't looked at that. If most of them close shop, what's going to happen to all those businesses down the line? Those are thousands of Nigerians that are empowered through the industry. We haven't looked at that. What's the consumer behavior? Is it going to change? Now we're hearing that back in the days when I used to go to primary school, we used to have those counterfeit drinks where they used to wrap in plastic bags. But with time, things got better, improved. We stopped seeing things like that. People are going back to that, going back to all sorts of drinks that we don't even know what's inside. You take away you look at the industry that is currently paying tax and you take away the ability to do business in Nigeria. What are you going to do? You're going to proliferate all sorts of businesses that you can't even track. So we shouldn't look at doing that. And all of this should come together. Cost of production is at an all-time high. Between December and now, cost of production has risen by almost 300% for some companies. So all these things, in my opinion, haven't been looked at on a holistic basis. And so from an economic standpoint, it doesn't add up. We're talking of the issue of multiple taxation. We're thinking there's multiple taxation in Nigeria, there's multiple taxation in Nigeria. At the federal level, they're saying, okay, they are finally hearing, we want to reduce taxes. State, on the other hand, is now trying to proliferate taxes. We need to align. We keep saying it in Nigeria that there's no policy alignment between the federal and state. We need to come to that point where there's policy alignment. So the entire macroeconomic environment right now absolutely doesn't support anything called whether it's introduction or increase. Okay, let's park that. Let's go to the health.
Yeah.
This thing that we keep saying in Nigeria to say Nigeria has a sugar problem is exaggerated. Again, the data out there, I can now give you some of it, doesn't support it. So as at 2022, the Nigerian Sugar Development Council says the sugar consumption per capita for Nigeria is at 8.3 kilograms. The acceptable limits by World Health Organization, is at 9.1. We are lower than the acceptable limits. If you're saying, oh, okay, other countries, in Africa, Nigeria is one of the lowest. South Africa is at 38 kg per capita, 36 kg per capita. Ghana and Igbo is at 16 kg per capita. Kenya is about 23 kg. So the question is, does Nigeria really have a sugar problem? And we say, yes, Nigeria is one of the highest consumers. Yes, but we need to look at it in context. Nigeria has what is our population? Depending on who you ask, is almost reaching between, I think, as about 230 million. There are some 10 countries in Africa you add together, you haven't gotten the population of Nigeria. And Nigerian population, the median age, I think that's as of last year, was at 18. That means we have an extremely young population. Put that in the context, and then you realize that, yes, you may look as if we're consuming a lot, but then if you didn't break it down, you realize that it's actually not a lot because we're a lot, and we're a lot of young people. Now, I know some people say, oh, India, but India doesn't also have a lot. India doesn't have a lot, but their median age is 32. By the time you enter your 30s, you will start to cut down on certain things. And so it naturally comes with the kind of demography that we have, and that should be put into context. Now, we also look at it. Another data, Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, there was a study they conducted in 2020 on average spend of the average Nigerian. I think it's a monthly spend of the average Nigerian. What that study shows is that only 1.4% of the monthly expenditure of the average Nigerian is spent on non-alcoholic beverages. 1.4%. That was as at 2020. As at 2024 today, when it's almost reaching 400 naira, I don't know it has become luxury. I don't know how many people just buy cartons and pack in their house, because personally I don't. So, and I know I'm not going to put myself there, but come on. with people with over 60-something% multidimensionally poor, you shouldn't be looking to take away livelihoods. You shouldn't be looking to further impoverish people. Now you also look at, okay, you say we have a sugar problem. At the national level, we know we have a sugar master plan. The sugar master plan is to drive sugar production in Nigeria.
Yes.
But say we're not producing enough. How do we drive sugar production in Nigeria? And one industry that utilizes less than 40% is being vilified on the basis that their products are the worst thing that happens since sliced bread. It doesn't make sense. So if we're looking at it from a national level, that they are driving sugar production, so what's going to happen to the sugar that is being produced? What's the idea? Because from a federal level, they do realize that Nigeria, at the point where we are, we don't have a sugar problem. Now it's okay, we're trying to reduce the non-communicable diseases like what? Obesity, hypertension, high blood pressure.
Yeah.
We know obesity is not singularly a sugar problem. It's a calorie consumption problem. Calorie intake and what you're able to expend. If you don't, you store it and you're obese. It's the environmental factors involved. So it's a complex set of things. And there are lots of other things. Your eating, your feeding habits, whether you have a healthy diet, your activity levels, all those things contribute to causing obesity. There is no study that's consistently saying that obesity is singularly attached to sugar. So saying that SSB tax, and even till date, SSB tax hasn't been linked to directly reducing obesity in any country. Yes, it will reduce sugar intake. What we've seen is that in those countries where it's implemented, it does to some extent reduce sugar intake. But obesity, countries like UK will not have obesity. UK is still battling obesity. Mexico, these are countries that introduced and have implemented, hiked it, all sorts over years. UK, Mexico, France, Chile, they all still have obesity problems as at date. They have all implemented this thing. So we have implemented it. So we're not saying, otherwise, I mean, if you're looking at where they are in terms of their sugar consumption, by now they should have shut down the entire sugar industry. Don't you agree with me? If I take, for example, in South Africa, they should, at 36 kg per capita, there should be no sugar in that country if sugar is the problem. So we look at that. Then you look at World Health. There is some analysis that they do from time to time. There was one that was done in 2017, and there was another one that was done in 2022. What they say, they consider policies that can be policy interventions that can be introduced to reduce non-communicable diseases. They usually have maybe they can come up with 88, and then they have their best buy. The best buys are maybe the best 20, best 30. Both in 2017, when they did that, their first best buy, and in 2022, SSB tax didn't make that list. So
Ugochi, allow me to interject you while you continue, because I know you've made real sense of this, and I like that you've been able to break it down for us economically, health-wise, and all of that. You're the expert in that field. My job is to throw the questions. I'll follow up with you and say that the commissioner highlights challenging revenue towards health and education. Now, how crucial is transparency and, of course, clear allocation plans to ensure they effectively address the intended health goals?
Yeah, thanks a lot for that question, Tolu. I think on that one, I think they're completely spot on, absolutely correct. You need to be able to earmark. So when you have some of these taxes that are supposed to deal with a particular set of things, it's good to earmark it so that you can then use it. One, it increases public trust. If you're able to then monitor it and evaluate it to say, okay, over time, has this thing been able to reduce this thing? People are able to, they can see what this tax has been put to use. Because part of the reason why people don't pay taxes in Nigeria is that they say, I can't see what you're using my taxes for. It just seems as if some people at the center are just using it and just languishing. But if you're able to then use it, say, oh, I'm using it to do educational campaigns, I'm using it to increase access to healthier food options, I'm using it to do targeted campaigns, that people are able to see and be able to relate to some of the things. So if that happens from that angle, I'm in support to earmark taxes. But what I am not in support of is to say at this point where we are in Nigeria, we are introducing and increasing taxes.
Interesting. But many, when we talk tax issues, many believe that government is always looking for a way to, of course, raise revenue from that end. And, you know, at this time, where the government is looking at the non-oil space as the alternative, what will be your final thoughts on this? And what would be advised, both sides, government and, of course, the masses that pay the tax?
Yes. So in terms of increasing revenue, you know, the issue is if you're able to stimulate economic activity,
yes,
then people are able to. I mean, taxes on profits, you will get the tax. But if there is no economic activity, if you increase taxes, what you will get is a complete chaos. Because what's going to happen is businesses are going to lose, the government is going to lose taxes, and so the question is, you must make sure that you have that right time and the taxes at a level that is not literally punitive. So there is a time to do things, and now is not the time to increase it. Secondly, Lagos states need to be a bit more sensitive to the fact that there are pace setters in this country. Whether we like it or not, Lagos is the Dubai of Africa. Now they say we're not going to Dubai. This is the Dubai. So when they come up with policies, they need to understand that other states tend to toe in line. So there must be that holistic approach in coming up with taxation. You must you must do some stakeholder engagements, not just look at it from one side. You must consider all your stakeholders. And you look at what's the impact. Is this thing going to raise more revenue for me? I know you're trying to raise revenue, but at this point, if it's done, is it truly going to raise revenue, that revenue that I'm looking for, or is it going to have an unintended consequence, such as the industry is going to collapse? Jobs will be lost, livelihoods, you're putting more people in poverty. Is it going to drive the kind of consumer behavior that I'm looking for? Is it going to reduce the consumption that I'm looking to reduce? And the unintended health consequences. In these days now, we're talking of mental health. Nigerian situation, stress is causing people high blood pressure, hypertension. These are all unintended consequences that we haven't actually thought through in saying some of these things. So yes, we need to increase revenue. But at this time, and we keep saying it, a lot of people are not paying revenue. You cannot pay taxes. You cannot single out an industry. You can see from their numbers year on year. FRS publishes these numbers. The state governments publish these numbers. They are paying taxes. You then single them and just continue to drive it, tax them into poverty. It doesn't work. We're taking the lazy man approach, looking for low-hanging fruits. Drive compliance across board. Make more people, bring more people into the tax net. That's what the government should be looking at doing. If you're bringing more people into tax nets and stimulating economic activity, you will be able to collect more taxes. So with that, and then, on the fact that whatever government needs to do, they have to take a balanced approach. I believe in taking a balanced approach. You look at society well-being, yes. You look at generating income, yes. But you also need to consider the industry growth. So it's at that point that I would want to end my final thoughts to say that now is not the time. Government should focus on driving and stimulating the industry. Manufacturing is an industry in Nigeria. We're trying to want to get them to the level where tax revenue can alternatively come from manufacturing and agriculture. And we keep saying it, as long as those two don't improve, our FX situation is not going to improve. So at this time, government should be thinking of bailing out those two sectors and not seeking to tax them more. The timing is absolutely wrong. Thank you, Tony.
Well, interesting. A lot there. We'll see how it all plays out. I must thank you so much. Really, it's been a while, and it's good to have your brilliant thoughts around this topic of discourse. Ugochi Ndebbio is a lawyer and associate director. She's with PricewaterhouseCoopers, Nigeria. Thank you. Do enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest
of your day. And we'll try to stay away from sweetened drinks, at least a bit away from it. Not a totally away.
Right? In life, everything has to be in moderation.
Of course, I agree with you. Thank you.
All right, thank you.